Sean Hickey from ProFarmer Grain joins us again. Always good to have you with us, Sean.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ricky.
Look, it's been a massive year for our farmers and a pretty busy Christmas for some as well, getting the crop off. Just what have we been able to pull off across southeastern Australia and nationwide particularly?
Yeah, that's right. So I suppose with harvest now complete, the market's really starting to get kind of a clearer idea of those overall production figures. So I suppose the big one is at a national level, we've seen national canola production at a record level. So over 7.5 million metric tonnes has come off. And then we've got wheat, which is the second highest on record. So that tipped over 37.5 million metric tonnes. And then barley is also the second highest on record at well over kind of 13.5 million metric tonnes. So they're the kind of national headline figures. So a really strong harvest, obviously, with quality also coming in a little bit better than expected on the southeast coast as well. But yeah, South Australia was a really strong. They hit record winter crop production, and that's really favourable for growers given the higher commodity prices, which has helped to offset those kind of high labour costs and input costs that have been pretty widely reported.
Those numbers, are they based purely on, I guess, what the likes of a Viterra or a CBH reports, or is there, a bit of on-farm storage in the data, or could it actually be a lot more that just hasn't been reported by farmers?
Yeah, so I suppose that's the interesting thing, isn't it, is that you do kind of take into account what the bulk handlers have received, and then use a little bit of your own intuition as well to understand that there's obviously a significant amount of storage on farm. That's particularly the case in Western Australia and South Australia, where we have seen those record winter crop productions. So we're still seeing a significant amount of grain kind of coming into those larger storages, which could potentially push figures higher. And we have seen that with recent USDA reports. They've risen Australian wheat production at a national level. So it'll certainly be one to keep an eye on over the coming kind of month or two.
Now, that record canola crop is not necessarily a surprise given we saw huge amounts of it planted off the back of strong prices. Are you hearing any whispers about where things might be headed in terms of plantings this coming season?
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one, given how widely growers look to plant canola the season gone. It would be surprising if we hit that record 7.5 million metric tonnes again. There's no doubt that the inflated prices that we're seeing at the moment will continue to encourage growers to plant those crops. But we might see a bit of a slight drop-off on what we did see this year. And again, those higher input costs will probably weigh on those canola planting somewhat as well.
Yeah, that's right. There was always a trade-off, wasn't it? Your canola might get you more, but you've got to put more inputs into it. What are we seeing on the input cost front? Any relief on the fertilisers, the chemicals and the blessed diesel? Yeah,
it's a big one, particularly coming into this time of year. We have seen the prices of inputs decline from those highs that we saw in mid-2022, but we expect them to remain kind of well above average this year. So we've got the price of DAP fertiliser back by around 30% from the highs, but again, still 70% above average. Urea, that's kind of back by around 40%, but again, that's still kind of double the 5-year average. And then in terms of diesel, we've seen those kind of terminal gate prices come back by around 20% from the record highs of mid-last year. But again, remain about 45% above longer-term averages. So while input prices have kind of started to decline, and that's kind of driven by those easing crude oil and natural gas prices, and we expect that to be a continuing trend in 2023, prices are still going to remain above those longer-term averages, given everything we've got going on over in Ukraine and Russia and the disruption that kind of has the potential to cause.
Yeah, I'm glad you cast your eye overseas. We've talked about how to get the crop in and how we're getting it off. Where's it going? How are our export markets looking?
Yeah, exports are looking really strong. We saw kind of almost 2.7 million metric tonnes of wheat exported in January alone. And that's going to rise further in February. Barley exports are expected to be the same. They're going to tick higher in February again, and they'll kind of potentially hit around that 1 million metric tonnes exported during that month mark. So yeah, exports looking really good at the moment. I suppose in terms of China, which is the one that people are kind of looking at, particularly with those supposed easing of trade tensions, we have seen exports actually slow in February, with only 125,000 kind of tonnes shipped out there so far. But we do kind of expect China to remain the primary destination for both our sorghum, and also they'll be our largest wheat export destination this season as well. So still some pretty strong demand from China, even without any barley exports at the moment.
Well, that's a whole lot of comprehensive information already, Sean, but your organisation, Rural Bank's got some regular insights. The latest that have come out, it's just chock full of data for our primary producers.
Yeah, that's right. The Rural Bank kind of provide a monthly commodity update, which looks at production and pricing in particular across a range of ag commodities. So the February update, which just released, kind of reports cattle, sheep, wool sectors are all kind of seeing a bit of a spike in supply, and that's off the back of rebuilding livestock numbers over the last couple of years. But that is starting to push prices of those commodities lower. Dairy is kind of the industry that's really bucking the trend there. So production kind of lagging behind previous years. So the upside there is that the low supply kind of is looking at pushing the opening milk prices higher in the new season.
Don't I know it, Sean? I've got teenagers. They chug through the milk every morning. Thanks so much for joining us, Sean Hickey from ProFarmer Grain. We'll catch you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ricky.